actually pretty scary. I knew there were going to be a lot of people here, but when you come out from the back over there and you're introduced in such a way, you feel like you're being punched in the... I mean, you know, Henry Kissinger, former US State Secretary, he was once introduced at a seminar by the saying, "This guy needs no introductions." And he came onto the stage and said, "Well, perhaps not, but it sure is nice to listen to them." So thank you very much, Andre. It's a bit shocking to come here to Jyväskylä, to the NBF. And I mean, how the hell can you organize an event like this without Mauri Pekkarinen? I mean, Hans-Peter and Jyri must be something special. And I've also looked at previous speakers here, you know. Al Gore, Richard Branson, I like his smile, the hairstyle is a bit, but Jack Welch. Why the hell was I invited? So it's very simple. I'm very flattered, and now that I have the stage here, I mean, I'm going to try to stay here. And I'm actually, you know what, I'm going to surprise you. Today I have 5 points. 3 is for wimps, 5 points. This is such a special event today, I'm going to do that. And this is my last gig today. I've had 4 previous engagements in Jyväskylä, and they've all been very good. And after this, I'm really looking forward to this, but after this I'm flying back to Helsinki, and I actually have a class reunion. I matriculated from Lärkan in 1988, and it's going to be great to go and see all of my old classmates. They're going to look very old, apart from me, of course. So really nice to be here. My 5 points today are going to be very simple, and they're all going to be linked to being international. First, how about how I became international? Second, how Finland became international. Third, how the world became international. 4, why Finnish companies and you should become international. And then 5th, I'm going to give you 5 theses about internationalism and leadership. And we'll leave ample time for questions and answers. Now, first, how do I see myself as being international? My background is very simple. I have 1 X and 2 B's in my name. I come from a bilingual family. I have big teeth. I smile a lot. I started off in a Finnish school, but switched over to a Swedish-speaking school in 4th grade. And the reason was that my left wing in EFK was in the Swedish-speaking school, and we needed to do some tactics together. I've always had a passion for languages. My great-grandfather's brother is Emil Nestor Setälä, who is the father of Finnish grammar. I do not know any grammar in any language whatsoever. My dad, when I was young, told me that, Alex, and to my brother Nicholas, remember to study languages. He was then and is now the chief scout of the National Hockey League. And we sort of wondered, Dad, you know, what the hell are you on about? We speak Finnish, we speak Swedish, and we speak English. Later on, we understood that the guy is a talent scout, and he saw that this guy ain't going to go to the NHL. But perhaps to Jyp, you never know. So the bottom line is that languages have always been a big part of who I am, what I am. I'm married to a Brit. She is good looking. And I'm allowed to say that. And our children have a dual nationality. I have lived the better part of 18 years of my life abroad. In the United States, in Belgium, in France, in the United Kingdom. All of my studies post high school have taken a place abroad. And at the end of the day, I actually got my PhD, not from Oxford, I'm not that good. It was just from the London School of Economics. So a big part of what I am, I guess, is international. It's been about work, it's been about studies, it's been about languages. At the same time, I was just asked at the university, do I think that we're going to have some kind of a Euro personality emerging and we'll forget our national identities? No, we will not. I feel very much first and foremost as a Finn, a bilingual Finn, and after that as a Nordic, after that as a European, and then only as a citizen of the world. And one of the themes about internationalism is don't try to play global, because we all come from somewhere, and that is a very strong part of what we are. Second point, how did Finland become international? A lot of Finns in the audience, you all know the story. We've been an integral part of Sweden for 700 years, and we were an integral part of Russia for over 100 years. And our national identity, of course, dates back to our culture, it dates back to our language. But our national identity or our national independence is only a little bit less than 100 years old. We have always been dependent from and of the outside world. We've always been international in many ways. Our trade, for instance, has always been approximately 40% of our GDP coming from the outside and coming from exports. We've always been a country of languages. We've always been a country of traders, and we've always lived with the geography that we have. I would, however, make one major point here. I would argue that we have emerged from what I call a top 30 country some 30 years ago to a top 3 country in the past few years. And that is because we opened up even more than we had opened up previously. If you look at all the measures that you try to rank the world's 200 nation states with today, whether it's education, whether it's competitiveness, whether it's happiness indexes, transparency, environment, least failed state, Finland ranks usually top 3. And we've done that, why? Not by closing up, not by being Finns, but by being international. You know, by the way, what the difference is between an introvert and an extrovert Finn? Well, the introvert, when he talks to you, he looks at his own feet, and the extrovert, when he talks to you, looks at your feet. So we have opened up. And if I were to do an investment pitch of why a company should invest in Finland, I'll give you 3 reasons. One is that we have a very stable and dynamic economy. We are a AAA-rated Euro country which sits around the tables where monetary decisions and financial decisions are made today. Number 2, and perhaps a little surprisingly, is our geography. Our geography used to be a nuisance. It is not anymore. Why? Because we have 80 weekly flights to Asia. Why? Because we're part of the biggest internal market in the world. And why? Because actually it's quite cool to be up here in the north. It's actually quite a good place to be, even if you go across the Arctic. So geography is a strength to us. And also having 1,300 kilometers of border with Russia is nowadays a strength, not a threat as it was during the Cold War. And the third reason, of course, is that we have a very educated labor force. The PISA studies are a blessing in disguise for us. The fact that we've been ranked number 1 for so many years shows all the international companies that want to invest in Finland that, hey, these guys have a well-educated labor force. So 3 reasons to invest in Finland and why we are international. 1 is we're a stable economy. 2, our geography is actually a blessing, not a threat. And then 3, we have a good education system. Now, my third point today, how did the world then become international? We have about 200 nation states nowadays. Our population on this globe is approximately 7 billion. I'm not going to give you estimates of either reductions or increases in the population. They vary from 6 billion to approximately 16 billion. We have 6,800 languages in the world. Yes, they are being reduced, and yes, I saw that Wikipedia is only in 260 languages. Need to improve. There are about 214 million immigrants around the world. And let me make one point clear. There's a big debate, Europe-wide, worldwide, Nordic-wide, and especially in Finland, about whether immigration is a good thing or a bad thing. Let me cite to just tell you one thing. There's no great nation in the world who has ever prospered without immigration. Immigration is great. We need more foreigners into this country. We need more foreigners to this country, not less. And I'm glad to say that we've increased in the early 1990s from approximately 40,000 to late 1990s to approximately 80,000, to 2010 with 160,000, now approximately 320,000, and before 2030 we're going to be 500,000 non-Finnish citizens living in Finland. And I think that is extremely good news because that shows that we are a prosperous nation. On the globalistic side, or globalist side still, probably a lot of you have read Johan Norberg's In Defense of Global Capitalism. I think one of the greatest books arguing against the anti-globalization movement. Look, we have over 6.8 billion mobile connections in the world. We have 2.75 billion people using internet. We have 40% of the world's homes with computers. And to me, this is good news. And to be quite honest, when we look at globalization, a lot of the people, a lot of the children of this world who had never seen a foreigner are suddenly now exposed to things which are different. I'm sick and tired of the people who say, oh, today's youth or today's generation. My argument is that today's youth is a hell of a lot smarter than the youth of my time because they have been exposed to so many different things. I struggle to explain the European Union to my compatriots who are as old as we are in the European Union. I try to talk about peace, prosperity, and security, and they sort of look at me, what the hell are you talking about, Alex? I was just tweeting to my buddy in Portugal, and we're thinking about flying to Barcelona. And by the way, last week I was in Johannesburg. This generation is exposed to things international, and I'm really happy to see that. My fourth and second to last point is why Finnish companies should be international. Here's where I put my, I guess, official hat on as the Minister of Trade. Now, I mentioned earlier that 40% of the value of our GDP comes from trade. We have approximately 25,000 companies in Finland today that do international business in one way or another. 19,000 of those companies are actually exporting companies. And if we look at the 40% value and we start looking at the structure of the system, it is very top-heavy because 25 of our biggest companies, the likes of Kone and Outotec, Konecranes, Metso, UPM, Kymmene, you name it, they provide for approximately 50% of our trade. You hike that up to 100 biggest companies and you're up to 75%. So that means that approximately 18,900 companies work with 25% of the value of our exports. I believe very strongly that we need to get more small and medium-sized companies to work with trade. And I'm glad to see that 15,000 companies actually work already outside the EU. And I'll come back to the point that I made about Finland moving from top 30 to top 3. In the 1970s, we were a closed shop. Yeah, we talked a bit of free trade, but we weren't really free traders. We were barter traders. We were dependent on trade with the Soviet Union. We had a whole bunch of cartels in this country. We were very protectionistic about our industries. And when that turned around and we had to start to compete in the 1990s, we went from what I would argue success to success. So we moved from cartels to capitalism. That was a good thing. I'm quite agnostic about with whom you trade at the end of the day. Yes, 50% of our exports go to the EU area. Yes, our 3 biggest trading partners are Russia, Germany, and Sweden. But don't forget the developing and emerging markets. Don't forget the United States, because that's where we see at least growth for the time being. We created, about a year ago, a concept which we call Team Finland. Why did we do that? Because we noticed that we had 1,000 people in this country working with taxpayers' money with trade. And they were doing different kinds of things in different kinds of places and not seeing any synergy. They were almost competing. The Foreign Ministry with the Ministry of the Economy, FinPro with some of the chambers of commerce. And we wanted to create something new. And I think that we succeeded in doing that. Now, what does Team Finland do, and how do we help you guys to internationalize? One is we try to suss out which are the promising markets for you. Number two, we try to find you to help those markets. And number three, we try to abolish impediments to markets. And we really try to encourage everyone to do business abroad. Having said that, I'm a capitalist enough to say that it's not me, it's not us, it's not the government, it's not the public sector that will make you international. You make yourself international. We try to facilitate, we try to help. I'm sick and tired of these people who say that let's help to stimulate the economy to create growth. That is a fallacy. Growth is created by Finnish entrepreneurs, Finnish enterprises, and Finnish workers. We can only facilitate the process, but it's not us creating the growth or making you international. My final and fifth point, in order to leave ample time for Q&A, is to give you 5 theses, the way in which I see internationalism and leadership. Thesis number 1, I think internationalism is between your ears. It's in your head. It is easy and it's important to be international. But don't pretend to be a citizen of the globe. I think you can be international by being yourself and by being a Finn. We are a little bit quirky, we are a little bit funny, a little bit special, and a little bit different. We're Finns who can be international. So think international, but always remember your roots and your background. Point number 2, speak English. And speak English fairly well. But never ever start feeling ashamed about your accent, about grammatical mistakes. That's rubbish. We all have accents and we all make mistakes. Just talk. But once you've learned the English part, with your accent or otherwise, don't forget to study and learn other languages. You know, we seem to have the zero-sum thinking in Finland that one language is away from another. And to be quite honest, as someone who speaks 5 languages, I firmly believe that more is more. But we have the zero-sum thinking that, ooh, if you learn Swedish, your English might get worse. No, it gets better. If I learn Russian, that's away from studying Swedish. Rubbish. You can do both, and it's actually quite stimulating. So learn another language. If I had the choice, yeah, it's great to speak Finnish, Swedish, English, French, and German, but I'd love to speak Russian. I'd love to speak Russian. I'd love to speak Spanish. My God, if I could speak Chinese, I'd really rule the world. But the bottom line is, it is never bad to know another language. Or have you ever met a human being who said, ah, damn, I speak this language. I'd rather not. So it's speak languages and learn another one. Number 3, and this might be a little bit paradoxical to what I've said before, but I think that there are only a few companies that can push for truly global solutions. There are only a few companies that can become really global with a concept. Big Mac, Coca-Cola, or Angry Birds, just to mention a few examples. I still firmly believe that you need to tailor-made your market. You need to tailor-made your product, be it a service or something else, to the market which you're trying to penetrate. And in my experience, having done a little bit over 40 trade promotion destinations with approximately 400 Finnish companies, is that the companies who are already established in country X, Y, or Z with local people are the ones who get the best results. So being international also means that you use local people and you tailor-made the market that you end up going to. Thesis number 4. Even if you're a company which is born global, test the local market first. Even if you're born global, test the local market first. See how your product works at home and certainly in the, I hesitate to use the term as a Finn, near abroad, but in the markets close up to where you are. In terms of transport cost and others, it's actually quite useful. And then my 5th and final point is that exporting a product is only a first step of becoming international. So exporting is only a first step of becoming international. The next step might be setting up an office. And the final step, actually, of internationalization is you moving to the destination where you're trying to sell yourself. And don't hesitate to do that. So be so global that at the end of the day you become local. I'll finish off with one general statement, and that comes from observing Finnish business from my current capacity for a few years. I think the culture of entrepreneurship in Finland is changing, and I welcome that. I think it's changing in 2 ways. One is that we are becoming, and we are more international than before. We have the guts to try to be entrepreneurs outside the borders of this country. And as I said, I think this is part of the secret to our success. The second thing is a question of mentality. I think we used to have big problems in this country dealing with both failure and success. Failure was sort of frowned upon, and success was envied. And I think that mentality in Finland is changing. And when that changes, I think we're getting to a mode of true entrepreneurial spirit in this country. So ladies and gentlemen, in the time allotted to me, the 5 things I wanted to say today was how I personally became international. Second, how Finland became international. Third, how the world is becoming increasingly international. Fourth, why companies should become international. And 5, my 5 theses on internationalism and leadership. Thank you very much for listening to me.
That was an inspiring speech for many of us who aspire to generating international business for ourselves in the future, and we need to do this. We have actually a lot of questions on Twitter. We're also going to be taking questions.
What's Twitter?
Would you know? You're the Twitter champion. I
think I saw Tolvanen here somewhere. Where was Tolvanen? Where is it?
Where is it? Yeah.
The Twitter mate. Lappi.
And
yeah, there. Yeah.
You guys are out competing each other, I think, in Twitter. It's amazing. I love what you said about being Finnish as a strength and not being an international Finn as a strength. Like, oh, we're a bit strange, and you know. And one thing, I have one piece of drama in my life is that I
married a Finn.
Yeah, I married a Finn.
Yeah.
And this Finn is the most wonderful Finnish woman. She's a Savolainen, but what can you do? But one drama, and you'll probably relate to me on this one, is that she has one big fault. It's her biggest, and otherwise she's a perfect woman, is that she hates elite sports.
And you work for Veikkaus.
And I work for Veikkaus. It's not good. It's a drama in my life. But one thing, she also at one point said, for one guy she doesn't really like is Kimi Räikkönen. I know, it's amazing. And she says, her argument is, when Kimi speaks, it sounds a little bit strange, for our mob. And you know what? I'm a Montreal boy, and I have cousins in Melbourne, Australia, and we love Kimi.
Yeah.
Because he's the man of steel, nerves of steel, man of ice from Finland, and everybody loves this guy. And you think it's a weakness, but actually it's your strength. It's you being, absolutely yourself. Yeah. And I think that's such a powerful point. Listen, I want to take one question up for you on the screen. We're going to take this one from Jarno Kukkila. What are your thoughts? The Arctic Storm suggesting that Finland will be very soon a global logistic hub. Is that an opportunity?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'd like to answer, well, President Niinistö and President Putin decided that.
You were just there this week.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely. Again, it comes back to my point about our actually geography being more of a blessing than a threat. And I firmly believe that if economic trends are moving in two directions, one is east and emerging markets, and the other one is the Arctic. And the Arctic is, of course, about the environment, it's about trade, it's about transport routes, and it's about resources. And if we play the game right, I know we're still missing a little bit of a piece there to the Barents Sea. Coming back anytime soon now.
You have a plan?
Oh, damn, now I'm going to be in Iltapäivälehdet again. Stubb wants pets on my back. No.
Minister of Defense next time.
Yeah, that's right. No, I mean, yeah, I do think that we have an opportunity there to be some kind of a logistic hub. I think we do it fairly well in air transport already. I think we need to improve our infrastructure. I was just up in northern Norway in Hammerfest with 38 Finnish companies, and one of the issues that was discussed was, of course, a transport route up to the north and to the Barents and Arctic seas. I'm not going to promise anything like that, but we really need to start thinking, I think, innovatively about it. In other words, how can we get the private and public sector involved in creating this kind of a hub? So yes, the idea is good. And on top of that, may I add that 60% of all world's icebreakers have been built in Finland, so there's another opportunity for us.
It's a huge opportunity.
Yeah.
Hey, we have 2 catch boxes here. And since we have a very sporty minister, we're going to see how far you can throw this. Okay. And we want to activate people that are a little bit to the back. All the smart people in the front row here have talked too much over the time. But anybody want to catch this for us? I'm going to let you throw it as soon as we have somebody who's at a reasonable distance. He's at a reasonable distance for you, I think. This guy right here.
Yeah.
Okay,
it's
can you do that?
Like
can you do that?
Bowling in Columbine.
Excellent throw. Oh, you again. Oh, I didn't see. Sä oot koko ajan äänessä. Yeah, exactly.
Why, thank you, Andre. You're really digging up the Finnish shame out of me. I'm sorry.
And look, he's looking at you into the eyes, not your shoes.
So well, yes, extrovert.
Just a comment. We just had a Q&A with Tom Peters, who replied to the guy from Rautaruukki on how to think differently. He said you should wear mismatching socks. To start from that. Exactly.
Way too matching.
And the guys from Google with the happy socks, where are they? There. The point here is that and Bruce Orek wore the same socks as well. So it's a Happy Socks, a Swedish company formed in 2008 by 2 ad agency guys. Today sold in 70 countries in 6,000 stores. The socks are designed in Sweden and made in Turkey, meaning all the money out of the socks comes to Sweden due to the IPR and the designed in Sweden branding. The point here is that according to Wikipedia, there's no such thing as Swedish design.
Oh, come on.
if you go into Wikipedia and you write Swedish design, it says the article does not exist.
It was deleted by a Finnish manager.
Sweden exists between the design superpower of Denmark and the design strong country of Finland, and yet they're the ones making all the money out of the word design. How is this possible, and how we can do the same?
Good question.
No, I think it was a very good question. I'm glad that I threw the mic in that direction.
He's been very active.
Yeah.
Tänne.
Yeah. It's like you should have said fetch.
Yeah.
But two observations. The first one is, isn't it funny how kids nowadays set the mega trends in the world? Kids, for instance, on, say, smartphones, pads, or applications, put the thumb down and thumb up very quickly. My kids started to wear mismatching socks about 4 to 5 years ago. Now I was sort of going, what's the thing? Yeah, it's cool, Dad. And now you see a Swedish design company doing it. I have one pair of mismatching socks, apart from the ones that I then sort of mix up with sometimes. And it's actually an American flag. I have the US stripes on this side and the stars on that side. And every time I put them on, my kids go, Dad, finally, you're cool.
You weren't before that.
Yeah. And second observation is, I can't give you a custom-made answer on how to get the Finnish design sector to move along. But, for instance, you see one of the biggest sponsors of this event, Vallila, which does great Finnish design. We've had a lot of radical design weeks. We were the design capital of the world. It's a lot about branding and it's a lot about marketing. And what I'm seeing, at least nowadays, is much more modern design thinking. Because we used to have, with all due respect, this Aalto fetish in Finland, that all design had to be somehow Aalto-based. I think we need to move beyond that. One thing which I dislike a little bit right now is the public discourse and discussion that we have on the copyright of Marimekko. I mean, why? Copyright is very important. I understand that, but why sort of? It's almost as if we're peeing in our own pants, it might feel sort of warm in the winter for a while, but then it gets cold. And I don't see why we're doing that instead of promoting. Marimekko is becoming very international right now, and that's only one part of the design scene.
We have another one. Are you ready? I'm going to throw it over there. Watch out. Ah! Anteeksi, ei tarpeeksi curved. I didn't do as well as you did. It slipped. Sorry. Tell us who you are, please.
From Deep Lead. And I have a very simple question. We Finns are quite laid back and very modest. And it's difficult for us to admit that we are good at something. What would help us? How can we create more enthusiasm and healthy self-confidence? Now I'll show you how to throw, okay? You ready?
Yeah, show me.
Watch out, he looks like a big guy. Whoa, that was good.
Yes, touchdown!
Yeah. No, I think that's a very good question, and I'll just start answering by telling you an anecdote. My now late grandmother, Marita Stubb, born Breitenstein, was multilingual German, Russian, and then Swedish and Finnish, born in Viborg actually. And when I went to the US as an exchange student in 1956, she took me aside and probably gave me the worst piece of advice I've ever gotten. And that was a Swedish saying, Alex, remember when you travel, to speak is silver, but to be silent is gold. Grandma, I'm going to the States, for Christ's sake. So things have changed since 1985 and 86. My thinking is that Finns are actually really good at marketing and speaking about themselves nowadays. I think it's a relic of the past to say that Finns are not good at promoting themselves. I can give you thousands of examples from the trips that I've had. Not once have I felt that, oh my God, that engineer is speaking something which I don't understand. But one example is, look, Angry Birds, what is it all about? I mean, great game, great product, and the rest of it. But it's all about marketing. And I think we're seeing a generation growing up of people who are extremely good at marketing their company or themselves. So I'm not at all worried about it. And I did a trip to the States with 28 Finnish startups, and it's, let me tell you, the wildest trip that I've ever been to, and these guys can certainly pitch themselves. So
They weren't silent.
They weren't silent, and so Finns are good marketeers nowadays. As a matter of fact, we're the best in the world.
Yeah! Woo! Hey, one question came in. Hey, this one is a policy question. It might be good for you. Let's try this one.
Oh.
Yeah. What do you think of this? Our free education is a strength. Do you agree? And how can we convince those who want to change it? Minja Smura.
Yeah. No, sure, it's a strength. I mean, it has produced extremely good results. The way in which I see the education system is, it's, yes, the free part of it, but you all start on the same basis. But the most important part is two things. One, the teachers get a lot of autonomy. In other words, they can teach a certain curriculum in the way in which they want to do it. So that sort of releases the educative spirit, I would argue. Second, teachers are extremely respected in this country. 10% of the people who apply to become teachers actually get in to do the master's program, which is required for you to teach, then 50% if you teach a certain subject.
That's a huge strength.
But there, it's a strong thing. But I do think that when we get out of the sort of lower education, upper education, into university, I think there we need to start thinking outside the box a little bit and think about ways in which we can commercialize, which we can compete, and which we can also export education. And we're not doing very well on that front. We need to be a bit more open, for instance, for people coming into Finland to study, perhaps ask for a certain study fee if you come outside the EU, et cetera, et cetera. So we need to think outside the box on that one.
We have only a minute. One minute. This is your pitch.
Okay.
And here we go. Hyvin, nice one. Good one, good catch.
Excellent, thank you. My name is Antti Merilehto. I work for Google. And occasionally I'm very worried. I'm not worried here. We all are preaching to the choir. The energy here is unbelievable. What I'm worried about is that Finland is becoming polarized. We have people who are truly digital natives, people who understand they have the necessary skills and the mindset. And then we have a growing part of society who are not with us. So, in a way, my question to you is, how do you view, like we've heard, innovation, you have to have skills. And how do you view, how can we get more people, more young Finnish people to study difficult subjects? We need to have maths, we need to have engineering to solve problems, big problems.
Well, you mentioned math. You know, I was a typical kid in high school. I had 3 interests, right? And they were sports, beer, and girls, and not necessarily in that order.
Not math.
I had not math. I had a short math. So thanks for mentioning maths and engineering. I'll just give you one answer. I think actually IT and the instruments that we have at hand today are conducive to integrating society rather than splitting them. If there is a native immigrant difference in the IT world, it's usually generational, albeit my dad, 78 years old, is on Twitter. But usually it's generational, and kids much younger than me are much more competent and apt at it. And my final point, with the time's up blinking here in my face,
they're throwing us off the stage,
is to say that I have been to 120 high schools since 2004. And I am extremely impressed with the kids or youth that I meet today. I look at my children using gadgets, forcing me to go on Kik Messenger and other things. And it is a completely different world. I'm not so much worried about our kids being split. I'm more worried about us, the adults, being split from the reality that our kids have.
Excellent. Alexander Stubb.
I've had the chance to give speeches to various fora around the world, and I've immensely enjoyed those. But the fact that you guys are here, that something like this has been created here in Jyväskylä, I think goes beyond anyone's imagination. And if you ever wanted to see a spirit of entrepreneurship and two young guys who decide, let's make this into one of the biggest business seminars in Europe and in the Nordic countries, you see it right here and you've made it reality. I think this is absolutely fantastic, and I really, really, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate the opportunity to come here and talk to you today. And have a great weekend. Now I know what cheek feels like, by the way.